Great. So straight on to our last talk before lunch. This is Ctrl+Alt+Heal, Python and the future of MedTech, with Lilinoe Lilinoe Harbottle. She is a data scientist and startup focused on machine learning and natural language processing models. She works at. She is not a startup. Anyway, straight away to Lilinoe.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. All right. So, welcome everyone. As Nick mentioned, my name is Lilinoe Harbottle. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a data scientist. So, our talk is Ctrl+Alt+Heal, Python, and MedTech. As I mentioned, welcome. The first thing we're going to do, let's start with the motivation. Why are we talking about MedTech? I'll take a moment, read that. 1 in 5 of all cancer deaths in the United States are caused by lung cancer. And this is reported by the American Cancer Society. So 1 in 5, it's pretty deadly. So when we talk about MedTech, we talk about Python, this is the problem that we want to address. This is why we're motivated. So a quick overview, we'll do an intro, a little bit about my background. We'll dive more into medical robotics, and then have time for a quick conclusion at the very end. Okay, so intro. So this is my first PyCascades conference. My background is actually applied mathematics. I learned Python trial and error. Actually, a lot of it was just figuring it out on my own, researching online, Reddit, that kind of thing. But I really enjoyed learning mostly in startup companies, where you learn as you go. A lot of my background has just been small startups, some larger companies, but the motivation for medical robotics was most recently with a company called Auris Health, which is now Johnson & Johnson. They were acquired a few years ago, and their focus was on medical robotics. And I specifically worked in the software team for these surgical robots. We'll talk more about that later. And a little bit more about myself. Outside of work, I'm part of Google's Women Tech Makers program. I'm an ambassador. I'm also the vice president of the Northern California Professional Chapter for ACES, which is the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, which focuses on advancing Indigenous peoples in STEM. There are a few more organizations that I'm part of, such as Indigenous Mathematicians. I'm also a member for a nonprofit, a mentor for the nonprofit called Purple Foundation in Hawaii. So, medical robotics. Let's take a look at this image. Let's think about medical robots, and what does that mean? Well, this here on the screen is an example of a robot, a tower and a cart. We got a screen, and we'll dig into it again. But when we think of lung cancer, we think of surgeries. We think operating room, we think someone goes to the doctor, and that's true. In traditional lung cancer operations, a doctor decides they want to do a biopsy to figure out if you have a malignant tumor or if it's benign. And usually when you think of a surgery, you think someone goes to the operating room, they have to make an incision into the human body, and then the doctor, stitches you back up, and you wait in the hospital and you heal for a while, and it takes a long time. So when we think of what can robots do, how can they help in this case? Because we already saw the numbers, lung cancer is pretty deadly. So now we want to talk about robot-assisted surgeries or bronchoscopy. And so the area of MedTech has evolved over the last few years, and it's still growing. So for this example, on this image, we're going to take it apart. So this blue wire is called a bronchoscope. This thing with the arms, that's called a cart. The little arms at the end, those are for attachments. The tower, this is the back of the tower, and here that was the front of the tower with the monitor on it. We have the tower, and then we have a controller. Is anyone here a PlayStation fan? That was the inspiration for the controller. exactly the inspiration. So we can revisit this later. But let's talk the numbers now. So we've got this robot. How popular is it? Who's using it? Well, it's actually pretty big. So for example, one of the major companies called Intuitive Surgical has a system called Da Vinci Systems. So far, they've operated on over 12 million people worldwide. That's huge. That's just for lung cancer. So this problem has been around for a while. A lot of different companies have been coming up with solutions. And we're here to talk about how Python is playing a role in that. It's pretty powerful. I also mentioned, traditional surgery, you go in, the person makes an incision to the body, you have to wait in the hospital to heal. It's a very long and expensive process. Those medical bills are gonna start piling up when you think of all the doctor's visits, the time left in the hospital, the time away from work, right? Well, what about minimally invasive surgery? And the work I worked on in the past is actually minimally invasive, meaning instead of making a cut into the human body, we can send a bronchoscope down the trachea, down your airway, and it's so thin, and it's guided by tension wires, and it has a camera attached to it. So if a doctor wants to see or take a sample of that particular tumor to determine if it's benign or malignant, they can and extract it. And this is all without making a single cut into the human body. So when we talk about minimally invasive surgery, in theory, a person can walk in the morning for a biopsy and walk out that same afternoon without having to sit in the hospital to heal. And this is powerful because, one, it frees up hospital beds for people who really need that. And it's also less risky and increases the chances of survival for the patient just from a biopsy. So you think that means the cost also comes down for that surgery. So this is one of the many ways where software, code, including Python, helps build this system that takes many hands to construct and engineer. And another thing to note, this medical industry, it's growing. By 2032, global market should be about 19.4 billion, and that's a conservative estimate. So it's going to keep growing. Again, what I started with earlier was, wow, 1 in 5. But the good news is that early detection is key. I mentioned earlier about the traditional surgery, you got to make an incision into the body. But with this robot-assisted surgery, the doctor has more access. This little example of the blue wire, that's the bronchoscope, and it is so thin, it's thinner than a pencil, and it still has a camera attached to the end and a light, and it's navigated by the doctor. So if you think about it, the robot is assisting the doctor in the surgery so that they have continuous vision, continuous reach, and control throughout the entire process. It's like they're a super doctor, and that's the goal. So we think about the process of, okay, someone goes to the doctor because they have a cough, or if they have this mysterious lump in the lungs. The doctor says, okay, maybe we should check it out. Let's go get some CT scans. You go get the CT scans, the results come back, and it looks like there's something going on. There could be some tumor in there. And the doctor decides, okay, maybe we should do a biopsy. Instead of the traditional way where we have to make an incision, we can choose this route, which is minimally invasive, where the doctor can schedule you for this 20-minute operation, can go in, take some pictures, possibly break up the tumor, or take sample of the tumor to determine and test if it's benign or malignant. So again, this is part of the process of early detection to figure out what are the next steps. And another thing that I want to share is that it affects men more than women when we talk about lung cancer. So men are at higher risk. But everything is improved if doctors can catch it earlier. So we talked about the process. We have the images of the robot. And now let's talk about Python. So where does Python fit on all of this? So I'm coming at it from a data scientist perspective. So when you talk about a robot, you could talk to someone from hardware systems, AI, from instruments. They're going to have a slightly different use case for how they use their software code for the robot. So just my slice, data science, is just one subset of the entire group. And this is how powerful Python is. There's so many different libraries in Python that there's just unlimited use cases. I grouped some of them together here. One, the obvious image processing and analysis. So for example, post-operation, if I were to have CT images, we can use that, analyze that, and further improve the software code for the robot. So that's one use case. And then with data science, the kind of typical use case of data handling, computation, visualization, and comparison of how is our software on the robot performing in between software releases. And then finally, and this is where I put the little medical icon here for DICOM and machine learning. So DICOM is digital imaging and communications in medicine. It's sort of an international standard for handling medical imaging and data, metadata. So some examples of how I use Python, and these are some of the many libraries because I couldn't fit them all into the slide, of what I typically use when I want to process a lot of the data. And the list just keeps going on and on. So where does it all tie in? We talked about robots, we talked about lung cancer. Where do we see the whole medical industry going next? Well, this is where there's this kind of line between data science and algorithms and AI kind of not being as strict anymore. Because now we're using software code to help with these minimally invasive surgeries. And these are extremely complex procedures, and it makes sense, right? If you think of the human lungs and all the airways, you want high accuracy and you want high precision. So we're using our code to improve medical imaging pre-op and also to guide a surgeon during their surgery, to give them early heads up if they're navigating the scope just a little too close to a lung wall. It's also really powerful for real-time visualization, and that, again, it just increases chances of success with every operation, cuts down the operation time, and reduces any chances of human error. So this is a computer-generated image. On the top left, that's what it would look like as a doctor sending the camera down the human lungs. The bottom left, that's a 3D rendering. So based on the input of CT images, MRI images, the software code can generate a 3D model that assists the doctor when they're navigating the scope real time during the surgery. Additionally, this is kind of like a zoomed in image of a potential tumor that may or may not be benign. That little blue thing, that's the scope. That's how small it is. And it has the ability to either take a sample to break apart the tumor, it has a camera on it, or it can suck out that tumor if it does break it apart. So where does that leave us? With all these different ideas, these different images, these different types of applications for Python, what does that mean? It just goes to show another use case of how Python is going to assist surgeons with early detection for cancer. It improves the diagnosis so it's more accurate, and it assists surgeons with making a more personalized treatment for each patient. And you can see on the screen, this is one example of a 3D model that was based on an input of only CT scans and MRI slices. And so by running the software code, it can create this 3D rendering for the surgeon during the procedure. So that's my talk. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you have any robot jokes, any fan mail. Thank you, everybody.